fresh out of the freezer. Fresh, guess I was freezed up, fresh out of the deeper freezer, cause I'm deeper than any voice on speakers. I can't hear y'all haters, you gotta speak up. I don't need to slow down, I need to speak up. Anonymous activity, Bobby B stuff. Jealousy's a key master motion, and ease up. Fresh out of the freezer. Fresh, guess I was freezed up, fresh out of the deeper freezer, cause I'm deeper than any voice on speakers. I can't hear y'all haters, you gotta speak up. I don't need to slow down, I need to speak up. Anonymous activity, Bobby B stuff. Jealousy's a ski master motion, and ease up. Fresh out of the freezer. Fresh, guess I was freezed up.
Welcome to the Ultimate DJ Music Review and More Talk Show. I am your host, Miss Taj B. I'm sorry, y'all got this ice in my mouth. Y'all know about this ice, but there's a reason for me in the ice today. And Rainbow and them was right about that iron deficiency when they told me on the evening rush that I had an iron deficiency. They were absolutely right. Because when I went to the doctor, yeah, that's exactly what she said. I was extreme anemic, but that's not why. Pardon me. I'm chewing on the ice today. I'm chewing on the ice today because I done ate one of them damn jalapenos with some seeds in it, and so my tongue is on fire. Anywho, we want to welcome Frank Carbone Jr. to the Ultimate DJ Music Review and More Talk Show LLC. He has some really interesting things to tell us concerning the environment and some things. So what we did was we decided not to go on camera at this time. That'll be our second interview, which will be in a couple weeks, part 2 to this interview right here, which will be in a couple weeks, probably, like the 12th or something like that, or the 21st or somewhere in between then, because I got a couple things set up. But we're going to do part 2 to this series right here in a couple weeks. So I just want to welcome Frank to the stage, you guys. Let's welcome him to the stage. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me and for joining. Allow me to join you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Frank, I was trying to give you the overall rundown of the show where I asked a couple questions, but I kind of let you introduce your own self. And then I asked a couple questions, and then we kicked the willy for a little while. But can you tell the people who you are and what you do? A little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been keeping pretty busy. For the purposes of this presentation, which represents probably it started. It was announced actually in 2016 that the Newburgh area, the region here, the way I see it differently than others, it would be a very large region that's been receiving this contaminated water. Sometimes I'll refer to it as poison water, and it's been ends up in a lot of the products, and the chemical that we're talking about ends up being thousands of these chemicals called PFAS chemicals.
Okay.
PFAS, and that stands for per and polyfluoro alkyl substances.
Now, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do that brought you to this.
Yeah. So my background, I have a lifetime technical background, troubleshooting. I came out of the high-tech industry. Been troubleshooting. Prevention has been an important word to me for my entire lifetime since I've been a kid. Been interested in the environment and wildlife. Some of the first reading material. My father, he had a prescription to National Geographic. My mother had a prescription to the Prevention magazine, and I read my uncle's New York State Conservationist magazine. So that was the spark that got me interested in the environment and good health and doing healthy things. So in industry, in the semiconductor industry, the computer industry, I had work that, it was very interesting work. A lot of it involved preventing people and product from being contaminated. And we're talking about things that, particles you can't see, or chemicals or vapors. So that's been part of my life's work. Technical writing. I was a former columnist, environmental outdoor columnist for the Mid Hudson Times here for several years, and I've been writing technically for probably 40 years, and so I do write. I try to write every day. I create memes, all based on environmental things, uh, health things, government things. So in this case here, government has played a big part in pretty much withholding a lot of information from the people, and we'll get into that as we do go into the PowerPoint.
Okay. Now, Frank, I do this little five question type of thing where I pull up, five random questions. I know that you gave me a bio concerning yourself, and I don't want to kind of take you away from that, but I think that these questions will kind of
Okay.
tie into the presentation. And what happens at this point is, like, if it'll tie into the presentation, just say to the question. We'll get into that in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start the five questions to get it started before we go through the presentation, because that's usually how we start off the show. What are the most pressing environmental challenges facing our planet today, and what actions are being taken to address them?
Could you repeat that again from the beginning, please?
What are the most pressing environmental challenges facing our planet today, and what actions are being taken to address them?
I would say that one of the most important things, this is only one, is the fact that these chemicals have been in our environment for so many years, decades, possibly 6 or 7 decades, and there's so many of them, and these chemicals are considered forever chemicals because once they get into the environment, they're here forever, and you can add the word everywhere, so they're forever and everywhere, just about everything, everywhere you go. If you were to look for them, you're going to find them. If you're not looking for them in products or anything, you're not going to find them. You know what I mean? So that would be probably the most pressing thing. One of the most, we'll say top 5 or top 10 with these chemicals. And if these chemicals have managed to not be discovered, or not be the information not being released to the people, what else is out there that we haven't even discovered yet that could be harming us? Once these chemicals get into your body, uh, the half-life is 6 years. That's what science is telling us. That's assuming that you're no longer ingesting contaminated food, water, products, and so forth. So what happens is there's a whole list of things that could make you sick. They can cause cancer, the different cancers. There's a whole list of cancers that they could cause.
Okay, will the presentation show any of that stuff?
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to show that, yeah, there's certain cancers, but not the whole list.
Okay.
It's the general list. And then on top of the list, even just as important as the cancers, the fact that they're carcinogenic, is the fact that they impact your immune system. So here are people are getting sick and they're paying to get well, and these chemicals are causing all these problems, and these people are getting away scot-free. And and a lot of people have already passed. People are dying earlier and earlier, from what I could see. And over the last 3-4 years, there was many people close to me who died. You know, They were like in their 60s or 70s, where they should have lived to their 90s. So the other thing is it can cause developmental problems in the fetus of humans, and you can almost bet that it's causing problems in wildlife too, because wildlife is sick today. I see humans and wildlife as the canaries of the coal mines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If and
Yeah.
for your listeners who may not understand the term canary in a coal mine, it came from years ago when coal mining was a big industry in this country. So when you go back to 1900s or the late 1800s, they would take a yellow canary, a bird, put it in a cage, take it into the coal mine because they were very sensitive to some of the gases in the coal mine. And if the canary got sick or died, that meant they had to get out of the coal mine. So these chemicals, there's much more that needs to be said. In my opinion, are probably in the top 5 things to worry about. And then the world, uh, this is throughout the world, anywhere that there's been a military base or a civilian airport is where these chemicals were used in firefighting foam for years. And then there was cases right here where firefighting foam was used as a fire suppressant in the military airplane hangars, these large hangars where the planes were stored. The system went off, and foam just about filled the whole building up, and then it eventually seeped out into the environment, which was the watershed for Washington Lake, which is what we're going to be talking about. But many other things have been happening with Washington Lake, and we'll get into that. And
Okay.
the other thing is particulates that get into the air and just pretty much stay suspended in the air, and that includes viruses, even some bacteria, things that we can't see, like during COVID, uh, we get failing grades for what we did during the COVID period. Um, another that would be something to talk about in another time too. But why did so many people get sick and die? And because their immune system isn't where it was supposed to be. So these chemicals affect the immune systems. So people can't protect themselves.
Okay. Number two, question two. You ready?
Yeah.
How can individuals and communities contribute effectively to environmental sustainability?
The only thing people can do, you can't depend on government to automatically do what's right. You People have to stay on top of things. They have to be in touch with their elected officials and other public servants. They have to write. They have to do their three. You've heard of the 3 R's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people have never heard this. The 3 R's, uh, the fundamental 3 R's that we had in school was reading, writing, arithmetic. But I say you need to practice your 5 R's. Reading, you got to read, you got to write, you got to do your arithmetic. This all comes into play. And then you have to research and react. So you have to practice your 5 R's. If you want to be a good citizen, you have to speak up. Don't expect somebody else to protect you and your family. You are responsible to protect your yourself and your family. You can't depend on government. I don't know what
Okay.
else to add to that. There's many more things we could say, and I've got proof. I think anytime I should add at this point to that is anytime you have government at any level in bed with big business or business, you've got problems. There needs to be a separation of government and business, just like there would be a separation between church and state. But
Yeah.
it's to a point right
Oh, you
now.
know that's dead right now.
Yeah. See, what was that? I'm sorry.
I said even church and state is dead right now.
Yeah.
You know
So yeah.
they purged and crossed over, and that was supposed to be a separate entity. But so
Yeah. So what I see with the problem here, uh, with telling the people everything about this what happened in Newburgh and why it went on for so many years up until now is the government here, and I'm not going to mention any names. They wanted to protect business. The newspapers can't hurt business because business contributes to the news. In some cases, they control the news. So, business gives advertising dollars to publications. So the publication can't speak badly about businesses. And this,
And just to let the audience know, when we speak on the environment in the watersheds of Newburgh, what's taking place is actually, it's not just Newburgh, it's all over the world.
yeah, what you're going to see here is not just happening here. People here that I know, and I talk to people all the time. I just talked to somebody just within the past week who really knew nothing about this. He's a Newburgh resident. He works here. He didn't know anything about what I was saying, and he might be listening to the show. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a lot of people that I run into when I'm out and about that don't even know anything about this. They don't know anything about the blood testing that was going on, and what, later on I'll talk about bloodletting, just so you know, in case I forget.
Yeah, okay.
When I said blood test, it reminded me to talk about bloodletting. But I've heard from people important people around the world. I do have a Facebook venue called PFAS Victims of the World United. And if you go there, you would have to join the group. It's not a public group. I don't normally push it or advertise it. But if you go there, you'll see everything that was happening here since the discovery of these chemicals in the reservoir, which is surface water, and it was in the groundwater too. And it's not the job is not done, and I think there's very little progress that's been made. And as far as progress,
Okay, hold that thought, because that's one of the next questions
okay,
we can get into that. It says, what are the latest advancements in environmental science and technology that show promise for the future of environmental conservation?
now as far as these chemicals, or as far as the environment?
Yeah, as far as the environment and the chemicals, period.
Okay. Yeah, from what I could see, and I follow this very closely. Every day, I'm being bombarded by advertisements from law firms who are looking for clients, and I see reports every day from somewhere about these chemicals and how pervasive they are. I don't see much progress being reported back to the people about how many accomplishments are happening. This should be done like on a weekly basis. I firmly believe they're withholding a lot of information from the people, just like it happened here in the city of Newburgh. And I don't consider the city of Newburgh to be an island, just so you know. What affected these people who live in the city of Newburgh has affected this whole region and the whole county and outside this county. And I can explain why. So,
Okay.
but we need to be able to see the progress that's being made, and where our our blood, sweat, and tears taxes are actually being spent.
They're being spent in New York City on the migrants and over there in Ukraine. They don't have the money right now.
That's part of it. But I think what happens is, I don't know if you or your listeners heard where the Pentagon, the United States, could not account for several trillion dollars that they were given. They could not tell you, they could not state where the money went. There was a time when there were freshly minted American dollars packaged, put on a pallet or pallets, shrink wrapped, and shipped over to other countries to be distributed. But it would take a lot of people now. They put this cold cash, American cash, in paper bags, and then it was distributed to the different people in the different governments, villages, and towns in these certain foreign countries, and that's when we were occupying these countries. But we spend so much money on the war machine, and we know now that the Pentagon can't even account for all of it and where it went. But it's taking away. We can't take care of our own people here. We have people who get sick and die, and they can't even afford to buy medication, which that's another presentation, another talk completely. A lot of,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's go on to a different kind of, but the same kind of topic, because if these things are taking place, what type of impact does it have on um like the environment, the climate change, and current trends and stuff, and like, can we use renewable energy
Mm.
to
What the
combat any of this stuff?
Yeah, the biggest impacts, it impacts everything you said and then some. The impacts for decades now, the family unit has been impacted by, by the actions of our government and business in this country. So people, a husband and wife, they start having kids, and they both have to work to make ends meet. They can't. In fact, today there's some people that they can't even afford an apartment. They're living out in the street. We have a lot of poverty here. We have epidemics or pandemics of cancers and other serious maladies. And fact is, uh, everybody pretty much indicates this is the best. These are the best times. This is the best country. This is the biggest, most powerful, the richest, most powerful country in the world. That's what people think. It's not. It's not. There's rich people here. There's billionaires here. We know that. They're making billions. Even during COVID, they were making huge profits. But the fact is, people are suffering here, and the family unit has suffered. Whenever it requires two parents to work two jobs and maybe three jobs to make ends meet and to be able to stay in a home and keep the family together. The fact that the two parents are both working, that means that the kids are on their own. So that's the biggest impact as I see it. Plus, we have pandemics. Like I said, the COVID pandemic was a pandemic, but what's worse is we already were in a pandemic of cancers here and other serious maladies that people just take it for granted that you're going to get cancer. In fact, I think statistics are one out of every two people get cancer. So if
Wow.
you're drinking poison water, anything could happen to you. So we're real. The government is not telling us everything. These law firms that are doing these advertisements every day, I see different advertisements on top of advertisements. That for some reason there's something missing in the advertisements. There's something missing in government, and we have all these different government agencies. We have the health department, like the county health department, the state health department, the U.S. Health Department, the CDC, the FDA, the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association. What are they doing? What are they doing? Um, I really believe that they're not doing enough. They're worried about profits.
Yeah. So
And
Frank,
okay,
listen, we got one more question before we go into the presentation. I
okay,
think that this last question will kind of segue right on
okay.
into the presentation. Can you discuss the impact of plastic pollution on marine ecosystems and what measures are being implemented to reduce plastic waste?
Well, these plastic particles that are probably measurable in the micron range, 1 micron. In other words, in 1 inch, there's 25,400 microns. So you can't see it with the naked eye. So we have all these little plastic particles. We're ingesting it. It's not just wildlife. It's just not the wildlife in the ocean, the mammals, the fish. Everything is ingesting them. We're ingesting them. It's in our food. It's a lot of the equipment. You got plastic water bottles. um, all these plastics. It's, in my opinion, it may not be, if we started now, maybe after at least 2 generations will we see an improvement. So this has been going on for many, many years, and it gets right through these sewage treatment plants. It passes right through. And people who use toothpaste every day, like we've been doing since we've been a kid,
Yeah.
they've been putting these plastic beads in toothpaste. I don't know if they still are or not. It takes a long time to turn around a big ship. So what we have here is businesses that are still putting out these chemicals, and it's the fact that it's such a these are such huge problems. It's going to take a long time to turn it around, and it's restricted because people and government don't want to hurt big business.
Okay. So do you want to start your presentation? Welcome, Malika. You want to start your presentation because that was our last question. See how quick those 5 went by?
Yeah, well, they were good. Good question.
Okay, so I can add it to the stage and then we can just begin and let them know what this presentation is about.
Okay. You want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So this slide, uh, if everybody could probably read it, but it's a frank tour of the Washington Lake watershed and the pervasiveness of PFAS chemicals. So this is only one part of two. And with me that on with all these pictures, I had with me Matt and John, who were high school students, and they were summer interns for Michael Sussman, civil rights attorney here in Orange County. A lot of people know him. Great, he's a good man. Um, anyway, so I had Matt and John with me. They did their own separate report. They did a good report. We did a tour of the whole watershed, and maybe it's impossible to see the whole thing in one day. I remember I took the mayor of the city of Newburgh out on a tour, and we only spent like a couple hours. And you really need the better part of the day to see everything that needs to be seen. So anyway, what you're looking at is Washington Lake,
Okay.
mountains in the background. You're standing in the town of New Windsor, or the photographer was, that was me. And this is right in the area where Walmart is, because that's the highway there is Route 300, also known as Union Avenue.
And this is in Newburgh, New York.
This is no the spot.
New Windsor, New
Yeah,
York.
this the reservoir is situated in New Windsor, mostly in New Windsor,
Okay.
and town of Newburgh. And so the
Okay.
watershed, um, the entire watershed there, I'm sorry, the entire area is surrounded by highways, and it's in the town of Newburgh and town of New Windsor. And unfortunately, this area has been abused, encroached, and contaminated, and it just continues. The reservoir was not protected. It belongs to the city of Newburgh, New York, and the city of Newburgh. This is the city of Newburgh's drinking water. So anyway, let's see if I missed. Well, I don't think I missed something, but we can go to the next slide, I guess.
Okay, you wanna do the slide or you want me to do it?
Um, yeah, well, I could do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at a different perspective of a neglected, abused, encroached, contaminated drinking water watershed. This statement, the next sentence, dilution is never the solution for pollution. It's an old saying from way back. It's still being used today, believe it or not. I'm hearing from people from different parts of the world. What they're doing is blending some good water, clean water, contaminant-free water, with water that's got PFAS in it to make it look like there's not as much PFAS in the water, and then they're giving it to the people to drink or use. Personally, drinking is not the only problem. It's taking a shower,
Yeah.
taking a bath, drinking products that have this in it. When you take a shower, every breath you take, you're inhaling all these little droplets of water that get into your lungs. Once it gets into your lungs, it goes immediately into your bloodstream, just so you know,
Okay.
and your viewers know. Or and then the chemical threshold limits. This is a term that I used over the years. This in the beginnings, it, as far as contaminants, we were concerned about parts per million. So everything back then, just about everything was rated in parts per million. So it made things more acceptable if it was real low. But with these chemicals, even if it's a real low value, like if it's 10 parts per trillion, once it gets in your body, it doesn't leave right away. It takes like 6 years for it to reach its half life. So in this particular watershed, and I imagine this is happening all over. We can't be the only ones here. There's permits to pollute, and I'll show that later in the presentation, where you can get a permit from the New York State DEC to actually discharge chemicals at certain levels into the environment. In this case here, it's a drinking watershed. I think this was a huge mistake and an oversight on somebody. How they ever did this is beyond me. How they could give a permit for a company to come in and then discharge chemicals into a drinking watershed is beyond me. It had to be a huge mistake. And I feel it must be investigated if it hasn't already. By the way, this is only the fifth time that I've given this presentation publicly, or now your people around the world are going to see it. But I've only given it 4 other times before. The last time I gave the presentation was to a senior environmental class at Ramapo College in New Jersey. That was the last time. And I gave another presentation in the city of Newburgh. I was invited by the NAACP to give the presentation in a church in the city of Newburgh. And
Well, just know that it's going through Blast Radio 247. It's going through blastradio.com. It's going through Blast YouTube, my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So you have a larger audience
yeah.
this time.
Well, this is what we need. We need to inform the people, and then it's going to be up to the people to make change and make improvements here and do what's right. We need our government to tell us the truth. And to this day, and as far as I'm concerned, they're not telling us everything. They're not telling us everything. And if they did tell us everything, like the companies that are making these chemicals are still in business. 3M Company, Minnesota Mining Manufacturing, DuPont, and other companies are making these. And now they're no doubt there's probably foreign countries that are making these chemicals too. So they're
Yeah.
using in all these different products, even your shoes, to waterproof shoes. These chemicals were used. They were put into firefighting gear. They're in food packaging. They're in you name it. The material on a couch or a chair, in order to protect it from stains, these chemicals were put on these. They're, by the way,
Like the Scotch guarding.
yeah, Scotch Guard. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So anyway, these threshold limits, now they're MCLs, maximum contamination level. I don't mention here. I'll mention it later on. Need to be investigated, lowered, maybe lowered all the way down to like 1 part per trillion. It needs to be improved or eliminated. And then you hear this one in different ways. Well, that's the way we always did it. And I pretty much heard that from an employee of the city of Newburgh at a meeting, and I get into that later too. Uh, well, the excuse, well, that's the way we always did it, is no longer an excuse for not keeping up with an ever changing world, new technology, unregulated, and emerging chemicals. By the way, even though at one time I remember when they said there was hundreds of these PFAS chemicals, then it went into 1,000, then 5,000, then 10,000. Now the number is up to 14,000 different chemicals. New York State Health Department is looking for 6 different PFAS chemicals.
Okay, well, we're at 35, so we got a few minutes. We halfway through our mark, and we only on page 3. So we got to speed up our presentation just a little bit. Tell me the rest. Tell me the next.
Okay, we're on number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. In this case here, the source of PFAS now is a pond adjacent to the New York State National Guard base at Stewart Airport. But it's in the whole watershed. It's in Washington Lake Reservoir. It's in the streams in the area. Okay, so what I'm saying here is the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, initially did not accept responsibility for contaminating the watershed. The
And that's
DoD
at Stewart, right?
at Stewart.
Okay.
But keep in mind, you know, what's happening here is happening all over.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And we know that Stewart is really little.
Yeah,
It's not a major airfare. So what about the airwaves? You know what I mean? Like I can imagine if ours is contaminated like that, the bigger areas of
yeah,
airways, I can't imagine what it's like over there.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that need to be said. Maybe we'll have to get into them in the second episode here. Anyway,
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to do a number 2 for this.
yeah. Here's what I'm saying here with this next sentence: the DoD could have done more harm to people and the environment around the world than all perceived enemies. Take it for
Wow.
what it's worth. And now this didn't happen recently. This happened maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So everything we're seeing here was documented from 2017, 2019 in that area. So the DoD has set aside 7 million, and 7 million is equal to 0.01% of a $700 billion budget to study groundwater contamination near hundreds of military bases around the country and possibly around the world. I don't know how far that money is going to go. An additional 20 million has been set aside for remediation at the Stewart Air Guard base. What's lacking here is reporting, progress reports. You don't see them. We don't see them. All right, next slide. In a report of May 3rd, 2017, entitled Millions of Americans Are Drinking Contaminated Water and Products and Don't Even Know It. That was in 2017, and there's a link to it if it's still there. And I've had this posted to my Facebook timeline. I would dare say that it's not much different today than back then. I believe there's still millions of Americans that are being contaminated. They're being made sick, and this is not these chemicals are not even mentioned. I've been to doctors, don't even know about. I have a doctor who's right at ground zero for this, and I don't think the doctors or any of the employees that work there know they're working in ground zero, right near this contaminated stream. Okay, next 5, 6. What health effects are the basis for the health advisories? EPA's health advisories are based on the best available peer-reviewed studies of the effects of PFO and PFAS on laboratory animals, rats, and mice. And we're also informed by epidemiological studies, sorry about that, of human populations that have been exposed to perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. These studies indicate that exposure to PFO, PFAS over certain levels may result in adverse health effects, including developmental effects to fetuses during pregnancy or to breastfed infants. For example, low birth weight, accelerated puberty, skeletal variations, cancer, for example, testicular and kidney, liver effects, tissue damage, immune effects, that's on the top of the list usually, antibody production and immunity, thyroid effects, and other effects, for example, cholesterol changes. People are spending billions each year to lower their cholesterol, and they're drinking or consuming something that raises their cholesterol
Wow.
artificially. To learn more about the underlying studies for health advisories, see the EPA's health effects support documents for PFO and PFOS. So you can go to the EPA's website.
Yeah, www.epa.gov.
Okay.
Okay, I see it.
The next one. This is blood and water criteria. So when you get your blood tested, the results come back in micrograms per liter for that's presented for PFC's blood tests can also be converted to parts per billion (ppb)
Okay.
and in parts per trillion (ppt). All you have to do is, and there's an example there. I haven't seen any blood test results converted to ppt, but the water test results are shown in ppt (parts per trillion). But water test results are presented in ppt. That's for water. That's like I just said. So,
Yeah.
for example, and I got a picture. I got a slide of what the uh, test reports show. So, if it says 38 micrograms per liter, that's what your test results were. That's equal to 38 parts per billion. And if you extrapolate that up, you just add 3 zeros to the right of the decimal point, and you get 38,000 parts per trillion. But that's not the way they express the blood test results, because that would raise some eyebrows, I believe. And I think that's the reason why they show it in parts per billion. And that 38, I think, happens to be my number. Um, and now here's an important thing: where the current PFAS MCL, maximum contamination level in drinking water, equals, currently it was 70 parts per trillion. Now in New York State, it's 10 parts per trillion. And even that, again, if you're drinking water that's been accepted and 10 parts per trillion is going into your body, it doesn't come out. The half life is 6 years. So it just starts accumulating in your body. And and that's just for one of the chemicals. That happens to be PFAS. I think that's on the top of the list of the 6 PFAS chemicals that they're looking for. Uh, but the fact is, if the value now of your test, everything is added together. At one time, it was looked at separately, but now
Mhm.
they add everything together, all the values in your test. So now some scientists are calling for it to be 1 part per trillion. And I think each state is different. They're not all the same. We're not the United States like everybody thinks we are. We're the ununited states when it comes to a lot of these things we're talking about.
Okay.
Next slide. This is a typical test report as they were. Now, the deadline for getting your request in for lab testing. So it was supposed to be in by the end of March. So I made it in with a few days to spare. I have not received my test orders yet, so it's been almost 2 months. My cousin, he got tested, and he hasn't received, this last I knew anyway. So after more than a month, um, after he got tested, he still hasn't heard back. Maybe he's been waiting 2 months even. But these values here, if you look at the left column, and this could change now with this new round of testing. The form might change, maybe not. But you see where it says, just take the PFAS chemical, the top of the list in the left
Mhm.
column, and then it says your results in micrograms per liter in the next column from the New York State Department of Health. That says 37.6 micrograms per liter, or that's also means 37.6 parts per billion. And then it shows you where you stack up with the population that was tested. So when you look at the next 2 columns, it's the U.S. population that were tested in 2013, 2014, from age 12 and up. And the middle level, the 50th percentile, was 5. So I was above the 50th percentile. Then when you look
Yeah.
at the high level, the 95th percentile, which is in the fourth column, was 18.5. I was higher than the 95th percentile. And then you
Wow.
go to 99 and 2000, you could see what they were getting back then was much higher, but it could be a lot of things there. It could be they were actually higher. It's possible that, testing was different. I don't know how many people they tested. That it doesn't say that. Um, I don't think it gives a number. No. It could have been 1,000. It could have been 10,000 people. And I think New York State is doing their best to get people to, come in and get tested. But I found out that a lot of people don't want to give their blood. They don't want to give their blood to government. They don't trust what they're going to do with their blood. That's what I'm. That's what I'm.
Yeah, everybody's scared of being being cloned and stuff.
Well,
Everybody's scared of
yeah.
being cloned.
Yeah. Well, we know also while we're speaking about this, I'll interject this. There's people that do not want to participate in the census.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Okay.
So, I see this here. It says call for free blood test order at the New York State Department of Health in Albany. And then they have the numbers here.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Where can other people around the world call to get tested for the water and stuff? I mean, I
Okay.
know this is just
Yeah.
for our area, but
Yeah.
where can other people?
Yeah. I hear that question all the time. What the people have to do, they have to go. I would say first go to your county health department. That's their job. And then if you get nowhere, go to your state health department and ask them. Some people, in fact, I just did a poll on the internet um, about this, what we're talking about here now, about people. And a lot of people, a significant percentage, said they knew nothing about testing. So it's not reaching all the people. Maybe the people are, not getting the news.
Yeah.
So, but these numbers still work. Um, well, I know that 800-801-8092 works because I called it last night and just to see if it still worked. So it still worked. But right now they closed testing or accepting applications for a test. I believe it was the end of March. So they're either very busy or they don't have enough people coordinating this stuff because the test you get your blood drawn at a local lab, or in this, I think the last time you went to this local lab over near the Mid Valley Mall in the town of Newburgh, or you could go to St. Luke's Hospital. I don't know if that's changed or not. So this is what your test results are going to look like. You're going to wait for them, but right now you'd have to call that number to see if they're going to open it back up again.
Yeah.
So I got tested in 17 and 19. And the reason why I did that, I wanted to see if my values changed. Did they go up? Did they go down? My test results went higher for PFAS.
Wow.
No. So,
Okay, so we got to go on. Let's go on. It's 50 minutes in. Let's go on to the next.
What's the cutoff?
We'll go 20 minutes over, not too long over because,
Okay. Well, it'll be here. This is a topographical map of the area from 1958. What you can do with these maps, you take one from 58 and then you look at one and overlay one from, say, like 2015 or 2020 and see how the things have changed. So development around Washington Lake has just encroached on the lake and in the watershed. So you got all these blacktop. You got the roads have been widened now. Instead of a 2-lane road, there's a 4-lane road. You got parking lots galore. They're paving over paradise, so to speak. You got all these. Now they're putting in warehouses left and right throughout this whole county, and I imagine I'm sure we're not the only ones. So all these surfaces now are impervious. So the water, the rainwater, the storm water, hits these impervious surfaces, and it all goes into Washington Lake or any other reservoir. Like, New York City, we're using, just so you know, the city of Newburgh, the last I heard, they were using aqueduct water. New York City, DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, aqueduct water. These are the reservoirs that are in the Catskill Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have two aqueducts going through Orange County. One is the Delaware Aqueduct. One is the Catskill Aqueduct. The town of Newburgh is on the Delaware, I believe. No, it could be the Catskill or the Delaware. I think it's probably the Catskill. And I think the city of Newburgh is on the Delaware Aqueduct. It could be vice versa. It's not that important, but they're on aqueduct water now. But there was reports that that wasn't the best water in the world, like the people say it is or was. They've got advisories on eating the fish out of those reservoirs, and that all comes out when you buy your fishing license, and you're warned.
And so at this point, we know that the fish are contaminated, the shrimp are contaminated, the
Mhm.
seafood,
Mhm.
and everything is about contaminated in the water right now,
Yeah, not
and
only are
everything on land as
yeah,
well, right?
oh, yeah, everything, even the fish, they're they're when they test fish, they're finding that there's these fish have both male and female organs. That's been going on for many years now, quite a few years. So what are we doing here? These
Yeah,
are these are all the canaries in the coal
we're
mine.
creating mutants,
Yeah,
X-Men.
yeah. Humans are the canary of the coal mine, and we're like lab rats and guinea pigs, and the canary in the coal mine. That's what we are.
Okay, you want to go to slide 10?
Yeah. This is an aerial photo now, so you'll see in the middle is Washington Lake, that dark area,
Mm-hmm.
and then down below that is Brown's Pond, and then down below that is Beaver Dam Lake, and
Okay.
that's been proven to be contaminated. So if you go up in the upper left quadrant, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see the airport runways. That's
Yeah.
where the Air National Guard base is. That is part of Washington Lake's watershed. It goes stands to reason. Look, you can see how close it is. And so this whole area has encroached on the reservoir. It has added to the contamination of the reservoir, and there's more to it than just PFAS. That I can tell you. I've heard um, reports from people who were stationed there when it was an Air Force base, and what this individual found when he was on a uh, patrol of the perimeter of the property. I'm not going to repeat it right now. Maybe the next time. Uh,
Okay.
so anyway, this whole area here is not suitable for a reservoir because it's been encroached upon and contaminated. And by the way, it's probably the best fishery in the whole region, but it's closed. And there's two different levels to Washington Lake, and we'll get into that later. So we'll just move on here.
Okay.
This is just a view from, like I said, from the west. And if you this where the photographer is standing, the thruway is right to the back. So you have all this traffic from the thruway, and that in itself, with all the diesel and everything, so all these diesel particles affecting people with asthma, and it's landing in the reservoir, it's getting into the water. Just so you know, side note, Orange County is in the last study that I know that was done on asthmatic patients. Orange County was the worst county in upstate New York for asthma. These were emergency room, and that's how they determined how bad it was. Emergency room treat cases.
Wow.
This is the worst, and
Okay.
it's not getting any better. A little closer view. This is what I call the diversion pond. This is where this contaminated water that is called Silver Stream that comes in from the watershed near the Air Guard base, and it comes into this diversion pond. And you could see, in my opinion, it hasn't been maintained. It's just filling in from sediment. And after it enters this diversion pond, we're going to go to the next slide. There's a small canal, maybe 100, 150 feet, that goes from that diversion pond, and it goes under this aqueduct underneath Route 207, and then it continues down into the reservoir. This is probably the main feeder stream to Washington Lake. There's others, but this is probably the main one, and there's probably underground aquifers. And these gate valves allow the operator to go and adjust and either shut down or open up the gate valves to allow more water going into Washington Lake or throttle them down. And when I looked at it, I'm not 100% sure how they're operating because right now it appears that they're closed, but the water is high enough where it's going over the gate valve.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still leaking.
So if they shut it down, then the water, instead of going into Washington Lake, I've got another slide here. Well, it's just a close up of the valve, the gate valves. This is where they were, and I'll get to it afterwards. They were filtering the water in Washington Lake through these giant carbon filters, and then taking that water after it was filtered, and then putting it back into the stream that was going into another watershed. And that's another story, the other watershed. So they're taking water from one watershed, putting it to another, and it's been contaminated all these years, and it turned into a big fiasco in New Windsor, in my opinion. This,
Wow.
this is a pipe that was used. Uh, this is the spillway of the diversion pond. So I've seen times when there was no water flowing over here, and then downstream of this ends up in the Hudson River, just like most of the, I think, 360. No, not 360. There's 360 impoundments along the Hudson River on these small streams. This would be considered an impoundment here. So this water goes down into this large watershed in New Windsor. And so everybody who's got a well down there should have been told that their well could be contaminated and they should get tested. And if they're listening to this show, they should have their well water tested.
Yeah, my son has a well out. He lives out in Wallkill though,
Mm-hmm. He
and
should he should test it because the other thing is if you did you hear about what happened with MTBE? It's this another report, by the way. It can go long distances underground. In other words, if a gas station had at one time the gas tanks were leaking underground, it could travel for miles in underground aquifers. So people
wow.
were drinking this MTBE is methyl tertiary butyl ether, and it was an additive in gasoline.
And the gas, yeah.
Yeah, well, when the gas tanks were leaking underground, it would get into groundwater and underground aquifers, and it could travel for miles. It just goes with the flow, and
Yeah,
that came out at Orange Lake, by the way, just so you know.
I remember going up there one time, and you could smell. It smelled like sulfur
Where?
in his water
Oh,
coming
okay.
from his well, and I didn't know what that smell was. And he told me that it just had to be treated or something, but it was just a really funky smell, and I didn't know, what that could be that would turn his well water so funky. But
Well,
anyway, let's go on. Let's go on. I'm sorry, Frank. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
not no, not a problem. Not a problem. We got plenty of time. We'll come back. This is Matt and John, the students, and like I said, they did a good report uh, on the reservoir. This, I don't know what this was. I took a picture of it. This is a vent, and it's possibly there's an underground tank here. It wasn't marked or identified, and this is a stormwater manhole right here, center. So skip over this. This is a historical site where the um, diversion pond is. So it's a historical site. Gate valves. These are the carbon filter tanks where they were pumping water up from the lake through these tanks and putting it back into another watershed because they were afraid that if the water kept building up in Orange Lake, it was going to affect the earthen dam and the earthen dam could escape. That's what I heard. There might have been other reasons too.
Hmm.
These were giant carbon filters. They did build an addition to the City of Newburgh water plant, which is in the town of Newburgh.
Do these things help with any of the contamination?
That's a good question. There's some scientists are saying that they don't, they may not work. They may load up quickly where you'd have to change all the carbon. But I can't say for sure that they work.
Okay.
They might work to a degree, but again, I haven't seen any test results on that.
Okay.
They built the building to put these big tanks in, not these, but others, and that was a $17 million price tag. And who
On
paid
the
for that?
taxpayers.
That's right. You think they would go after these chemical companies, but so far, I don't think they're going after the chemical companies. Skip over that. This is another feeder stream. Um, this is called Patton Brook. This water that's there, it's near the end of the runway, first of all, on 17K. And on the opposite side of 17K of the airport, there's a huge industrial park.
Yeah.
This is stormwater that's coming out of that industrial park. That's all I got to say. Uh,
Wow.
this unknown substance here, this happened to be December of 2010. At the time, I was working with a group of people. We were studying the watershed, not necessarily the Washington Lake watershed, a separate watershed, but we found out there was a connection, right, between the two. The
Mhm.
Washington Lake was sending water into the Quasay Creek watershed, all right. And so anyway, what happened here? Called me, said, "Hey Frank, you better get over there to this is actually Patton Brook, but it's Murphy's Ditch." And the city of Newburgh was actually paying for this ditch, like rent. But anyway, I filed a complaint with the New York State DEC, formal complaint. That's called the tip hotline. I got the numbers and everything are in here. And they took my complaint. No one contacted me. No one from the DEC contacted me.
Yeah, because that looks like jelly or some sort of clear
Yeah.
gel or
Whatever it was actually building up there on the ice,
yeah, because it's a bit gelatinous.
and it
You
was
see it?
settling on whatever it was. It was unknown. So when I went to the meeting in the city of Newburgh that night with this task force that I was on, announced to the task force that I said I just filed a formal complaint of this unknown substance flowing into the reservoir. And there was two people there from the city of Newburgh. I don't know who they were. I think I know their jobs, but they were at the meeting. The one guy said, "That always happens." That's what he said. I said, "Did you ever test it to see what
Yeah,
it
to
was?"
find out what it is.
He said, "No." He said, "It always happens." That's a cavalier attitude. This little brick house here is where there's other gate valves where they could divert water from going into the reservoir into into the Quasay Creek watershed.
Mhm.
And that's what it looks like underneath. That's the valve stem right there where they could lift the gate up and let water
Mhm.
flow out.
Mhm.
Give you an idea. This is in the watershed, and from what I could see, this is one of those things that where uh, a big truck is draining the oil out of the truck into this oil pan, and then somebody just took it and dumped it there.
Let's go up closer so they can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was in the watershed. This is what it looks like near that brick building. This is near where old Lloyd's Shopping Center
Mhm.
is located, and now it's Home Depot. But that whole area there doesn't lend itself to be in a watershed. This is
Yeah,
on
so everything that's going on with them is pouring right into the water.
everything that's happening in the watershed gets into the drinking water, and just like these chemicals, and your conventional water treatment does not remove the chemicals. It just goes into the people, into their bodies, and
Wow.
the half life is 6 years. This is where Murphy's Ditch empties into the reservoir, Washington Lake. This is where old Lloyd's Shopping Center was, where they had their gas station with many gas
Mhm.
pumps. It's been fenced off ever since they left, and it's probably, I don't know whether there's gas tanks still there or whatever's there. It caused them to fence the area in, like they don't want anybody in there. But that's where the gas station used to be.
Yeah, because the
Um,
ground is soaked and
yeah,
saturated with contaminants. That's why they
yeah,
close it off. I learned that. I don't know when you said, do I know Michael Sussman?
Mhm.
I don't know if you know, but me and Michael has served on a board together where we actually had to do a diagnostic on that area up there on South Street with that same problem.
DuPont.
Yeah, the DuPont area exactly.
Yeah,
And it's been roped off like this for many years. So
yeah.
yeah,
I testified to the DEC when they were holding meetings at the rec center in Newburgh, and I testified at those meetings. Okay, so across from that area, I something tells me it might have had something to do with MTBE, but I'm not 100% sure. All I know is
yeah,
it's fenced off. They can't do anything with it. Um, so this is where Murphy's Ditch empties out into the reservoir. This is the area when this was froze over, and I knew nobody came to investigate it because there was snow on the ground and there was no tracks in the snow. Because
yeah,
yeah, that's what Murphy's ditch looks like. It's dry now because they're not allowing any water to flow in there. Because the water is actually we traced it out. Goes all the way back up to the comes all the way from the industrial park on 17K near the end of the runway of Stewart Airport.
yeah.
Um,
Man,
this
Frank, I can't believe all that stuff is taking place. And I know you mentioned to me before about even the water. They're selling us water that's actually contaminated.
uh, yes, not only selling you water, they're selling you products with the contaminant in it. Still, we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods. So all I'm saying here is, and there's one more slide and we're done. Peace around the world begins with each and every one of us. We're all paying for this. The fact that we have all these wars, all these people getting killed. Each one of us is very important. You can do something about this, but we have to be united and pulling together.
Yeah, proactive.
We're,
Yeah.
we're yeah we're divided. This country is divided right now, right down the middle, I think. But peace around the world begins with each and every one of us. Everybody has to pitch in with not only for peace but for wellness.
Yeah.
We have pandemics of cancers and other serious maladies that is unacceptable. People are accepting it as though it's normal business. It has to stop. The last slide. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for attending. Thank you, all your people. Uh, and do the best you can to protect our drinking water and entire environment. You are more important than you think, each and every one of the people.
No, no, Frank, thank you. Because I don't think that people actually know the seriousness of what you brought to the table. Like this is very important what you just brought to the table. And this needs to be known across not just America but across the world because the more that they're doing this upgrading of every area, the more that they're damaging actually the people of the world. So, I would like to see some of the industrial parks, instead of them making 400 all across the world, I would like to see them shorten that down a bit. You understand what I'm saying? So that there are areas where these things flow specifically to a certain area and not to everyone. These are, some of my mental as a coordinator that I can think of as far as consolidation is what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
for the aspect of keeping America alive. They
Well,
want to make
yeah,
America great and get back to America being great. But the first thing we have to actually do is to compromise with each other and consolidate some of these things that are, have gone awry at this point.
yeah. Well, we can't continue the way we're going right now. And this is not a good time. It hasn't been good for many years. We've lost manufacturing in this country. I came from the computer manufacturing industry
Yeah.
I was in it for almost a quarter century, and I have to tell you that we gave it up. It's we're now importing so many things to this country, and we for some odd reason, some of the jobs that we do have here are undesirable jobs. Americans will not do,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you know which jobs I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's the influx of what the migrants are here for, and people don't even realize it.
well, yeah, the
You
farmers,
know?
these big farmers, are saying they can't be in business without migrants.
Yeah,
They come here in the fall to pick. They come
yeah,
here in the spring to plant, and they come to harvest.
yeah,
Americans will not do that job.
yeah. Yeah,
So
so
anyway,
I understood the influx as far as business was concerned because at one time there were a lot of jobs out here in the market and no one to be to man them. And just believe it or not, today I had to go and pick up some medicine and stuff so that I can, I hadn't picked it up in like 2 weeks. I'm not a medicine person,
uh,
but as I went to go to get it, there was a guy that was driving our bus system, because we have a around an area bus system that runs for free. And so it's like right around the corner from me. And I went and go jump on the bus, and it was a guy that wasn't even from America. He had an accent, he barely could speak well. And then he was doing the job wrong. And when we spoke to him about what he was doing wrong, he got immediately very hostile with us to the point where a 62-year-old man had to threaten him to get his voice and his attitude together. This is what they're actually recruiting in America, and they don't even realize it. That not only are you trying to, keep some money in your pocket, keep the buildup of money coming into the ancestry, but you're also bringing in people who are hostile neighborhood.
yeah,
You understand what I'm saying? Because he was really hostile to the point where I had to tell him, calm that shit down, because nobody is getting at you. We trying to say to you that this is a bus stop, and you just left 6 children and 3 adults back there at the bus stop because you didn't feel like it was a bus stop. So I asked him a simple question like, well, how long has it not been a bus stop? He said, I don't know. It ain't no case over there, so I don't know. And it was real hostile immediately. First, he tried not to answer me, and that's when the 62-year-old man stepped in and said, did you hear what she said? And then
yeah,
he decided to answer because he was going to ignore the question. And my question was like with valor. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it had nothing but honor. It was nothing, for him to be so defensive about. But then when he finally did answer, and the man got smart with him again, he said, okay, man, don't say nothing else. Like he got angry with the man for actually pressing the issue about why did you leave all those children back there?
Yeah. Well,
You
sometimes,
understand what I'm saying? So the influx of what
yeah,
they're bringing in to do these jobs
yeah,
are not actually going to be effective for the American citizens. So what I see them doing is poisoning the newcomers and running the American citizens up out of here. So I'm just saying that's my conversation, and
yeah,
that we'll take that for another day. But
right.
Frank, listen. How can these people find you? Where can they find this information? Where can you be located? Like, cause we got it 6 minutes to count down.
Okay.
So tell them where you can be located, and then we'll do a calendar date on when we'll come back to do part two.
Yeah. You could first of all, I'm on Facebook. I use Facebook a lot. I have different groups on Facebook and pages, and you could reach me if you go to Facebook and just search on my name.
Frank
On
Carbone Jr.
my middle initial is an A, and you'll see some interesting things. I do a lot of wildlife photography. Maybe someday I'll come back and show some of my wildlife photography and explain some things there.
Yeah,
Because,
let them know to stop eating those damn deers.
well, the thing is, the deer are sick. Uh, uh, 2 years out of the last 5 years, we had deer were dying en masse with this disease called epizootic hemorrhagic disease.
Hmm.
It's a virus that's spread by this little biting midge. Once it bites the deer doesn't last much longer, and they just, it's sudden death, and it could affect all of the deer in a region. And so, and then you probably heard about the dead crows.
Yeah, I've
We
heard
could
about
talk,
the crows.
we could talk about that.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
that's what I would call the crows are the black canary of the coal mine. Why
Yeah.
did all the crows die in Orange County? They don't know. They don't know. They tested them.
I
They don't
seen
know.
that somewhere else too. Did you see that over by the old folks home in another state? They had where somebody was complaining about the all the crows on the ground outside the
Yeah.
old folks home. That
Well,
was like a week or so ago.
it happened in Orange County. I wrote about it. If you go to my search on
Yeah,
Orange,
I'm telling you, just like a week or so ago, Frank, there's a black man that's going to hell off in the news right now about the crow. I can't stay too much longer. Okay, okay, okay. We'll
from a
talk about the
contact
crows next
for
time.
the contact as far as PFAS, I have a Facebook group. All you have to do is search on PFAS victims, and you'll find it. So it's PFAS victims of the world united. So I've got people on that site from all over the world.
Okay.
Okay, and then I've got other groups that I've got. I did a complete report on the crows that were dying, and that was in 2020, right before COVID hit. And guess what? I was handling the crows. I was double bagging them, triple bagging them to be sent for a necropsy. And I went back to the site. There were crows laying all over the place. It was their roosting area, and feces was covering all the branches and the ground. It was loaded.
Oh, they were
Within
sick.
within
Yeah.
within a week after my second visit there, I came down with COVID.
Wow.
I had all the symptoms of COVID, but I didn't end up in a hospital or anything. My body was able to fend it off. I didn't get any shots or anything like that. That was before COVID was cool, just so you know.
Yeah, somebody else said that the other day before COVID was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, we got 19th or the 26th. Which one you want to do?
For the part two,
Yeah, for part two.
yeah, whichever is best. You can let me know.
I mean, we
I'm
don't want the information to die down too much, so maybe we'll do it on the 19th
okay.
or the 26th, which is a month away.
Whichever is best. I'm
It's best
flexible.
for you, not best for me, because I'm going to be here anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, let's
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll juggle it, okay?
well, plan for the next time, and then hopefully we'll be able to do it.
Okay.
And then if you ever, I could actually come back and then talk about the wildlife and how we're not the only ones that are sick. It's wildlife is sick too. The
Yeah,
mammals and
we
people.
absolutely need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, Frank, I just want to say thank you for coming through. I got about 45 seconds to get this damn thing going right
Okay.
before
Well,
my
thank you.
radio team be cussing me out in a minute. But Frank, I will definitely have you back on, and we'll go over part two of this thing. And I hope that whoever was listening out there got a good whiff of what you're trying to tell them, because I don't think they know the seriousness of this. And I just want to say thank you again, Frank, for coming through.
Well, thank you very much for
And
having me. And
yeah, you can stay backstage, and I'll kick it with you for a few minutes. Let me close out the show, okay?
very good. Thank you.
All right,
And
all right.
thanks to your listeners too.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, that was Mr. Frank Carbone Jr., who you guys do not know is also my teammate and my partner on a page that we run called The Family Stew on Facebook. There's about 10,000 or more subscribers on that page. So you guys go check out The Family Stew, and all this information that we just dropped on you is there as well. It's called The Family Stew on Facebook. And I thank you guys for coming through to the Ultimate DJ Music Review and More Talk Show LLC. Please come back. Join us again next weekend. We'll have Loretta's only in the building, a musician. After that, we'll have Evans Colas, Frank Carbone back in a couple weeks to do part two of this right here, and others are coming up as we go. We have the interview coming in with Troy. We have the interview coming in with Dot Demo. So those will be coming up as well. And I just want to say thank you. And we're out.
Fresh out of the freezer. Fresh, guess I was freezed up. Fresh out of the deeper freezer, cause I'm deeper than any voice on speakers. I can't hear y'all haters, you gotta speak up. I don't need to slow down, I need to speed up. Anonymous activity, Bobby B stuff. Jealousy's